RebelKitty, and welcome back to my geekdom. I'm coming to you this week from a little bit different of a location in my house. Normally I film in my sewing room, which is upstairs. I'm set up in my kitchen this week because your girl is clumsy and I twisted my ankle coming down the stairs in my house. And I went to the doctor and had it x-rayed, and it turns out I have a fracture in my ankle. So yay. Yeah, I'm trying to take it easy and lay off the stairs as much as possible. So not coming to you from the sewing room this week, but still wanted to get together because we have to do our recap of House of the Dragon, episode 5. Y'all, can I just say, I cannot believe we are over halfway through season 2. We only have 3 more new episodes, and season 2 is going to be done. Can you believe it? It's unbelievable. It is going by so quickly. But wanted to recap episode 5, which is called Regent, and directed by Claire Kilner. So let's get to it. During this episode, we actually see how the Greens and the Blacks deal with the aftermath of the Battle of Rook's Rest. I'm going to start with the Greens because this episode starts off on a very interesting note. There is another procession through King's Landing, and they're proceeding by parading Melissa's head through the streets of King's Landing. And it was interesting to me to see the people's reaction. Some of them kind of, bowed and stood quiet, but a lot of them seemed like they were in just shock and disbelief. And then some of them were having just kind of adverse reactions. Like a couple of people said and made the comments that it was seen as a bad omen to do something like this. So I don't think it was received with the intent that it was given originally. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Like every week, I have the trusty green notebook here that I have all my notes in, so I'll be referring to those. So if you see me look down, that's what's going on. But we also get to see, as this parade progresses through, the extent of Aegon's injuries. As you remember from episode 4, when it ended at the Battle of Rook's Rest, we really didn't get to see Aegon very well. So they have him in kind of this wooden crate, and they come carrying him into King's Landing on a carriage, and then they carry him into the Red Keep, and they take him to the room, and then you kind of see them unboxing and uncrating the king and lay him in the bed. And oh gosh, what a very powerful scene this was, of all the maesters gathered around Aegon, and they're literally trying to remove his armor that is fused to his body. Just the reactions on their faces, and then of course Alicent, his mom, when she goes in and she's asking the maesters, is my son going to live? And just her reaction. And then we see Aemond come in and kind of his reaction, where he just stands at the foot of the bed and looks at Aegon, and then turns to his mom and said, well, someone's going to have to rule in his place. And I know a lot of people have asked, and there's been a lot of talk, is this part of Aemond's kind of plan all along for him to kind of ascend to the throne in his brother's stead? After all, he is next in line to the throne. So, it's been interesting to see kind of that coolness of Aemond, and kind of see, I've seen several interviews with Ewan Mitchell who has said, with Aemond, those wheels are always turning. You don't quite know what's going on behind that eye, but there's always something going on behind that eye, and there's always wheels turning. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. It's going to be interesting to see, does Aemond feel remorse for what happened? Did he burn his brother on purpose? Some, people have wondered that. I don't know. I just know it's interesting to watch this character arc develop throughout the episode. I know Alicent too seems to be questioning Aemond's loyalty through all of this, and one would kind of understand why. It's interesting too when we see the Green Council eventually gather and they take up the question, who is going to basically rule in Aegon's stand, because obviously he is in no shape to perform his king duties at this point. And it's interesting that Aemond just kind of sits there very quiet. He's just kind of sitting there like, my plan's unfolding. And basically the Green Council turns on Alicent. Alicent is very forthcoming. She said, well, I served in Viserys' stead when he got sick, so of course I am ready to do so again. And they basically told her to sit down and shut her mouth, which I was like, oh girl. But yeah, they're like, and Larys Footman, I don't usually agree with him, but when he said, people have questioned whether Rhaenyra should be the heir or was named the heir by Viserys, and we then, how much better are we seen as is if we raise our own woman up to rule? How are we any different, basically? So everyone on the Green Council, including Larys, including Christian Cole, interestingly enough, says no, it should be Aemond. Aemond is the king's closest relative of age, and he's next in line to the throne to rule. So Aemond about near skips to the head of the table and grabs the sphere from the center that is Aegon's and places it in the holder at the head of the table where the king normally sits, and proceeds to basically jump right into it and give instructions about what's going to happen next and when they're going to meet next. And interestingly enough, tells them to cut the rat casters down, which are kind of gross and still hanging on the walls of the Red Keep. So it was an interesting scene to see this unfold. Now, as you all know, I am a reader and lover of the book as well. And according to the Maesters, who supposedly wrote Fire and Blood, there's this real famous scene in the book of Aemond actually taking the crown, Aegon's crown, the Conqueror's crown, and placing it on his head and supposedly saying it looks better on him than it ever did on Aegon. And I gotta tell you, y'all know I am an Aemond girl at my heart. And I was so wanting this scene to happen. I was like, if anything they include from the book, I hope they include this bit. We didn't see it in this episode. So it makes me wonder, is it coming? Will we see it later? Or is that something that's going to be glossed over or perhaps interpreted as, well, that was an interpretation by the Maesters, who supposedly wrote Fire and Blood years after the fact of everything that happened. So of course, history sometimes gets fuzzy and they embellish things a little bit. But y'all, I was wanting that scene so bad. But who knows? Maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't. But definitely seeing, Aemond stepping into this role as Prince Regent and assuming the duties for Aegon. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this storyline plays out. And to see if he has any further interaction with Aegon, his brother. So maybe we'll see a scene in the next episode that will speak to this. We'll see. Okay, so switching over to the Blacks now, we go over to Dragonstone and check in on Rhaenyra, and I don't think Rhaenyra is having a very good time of it either. First off, let's just say, Corlys is in mourning, absolute mourning over Rhaenys and over her passing and the loss of her, and I feel so bad for him. As I've always said, Rhaenys and Corlys are two of my favorite characters in this whole series. And oftentimes, let's face it, y'all, they were the only two adults in the room. So to have one of those, good, solid characters, meet her demise and then see her partner deal with this, it was just heartbreaking for me to see. But that we know Rhaenyra is having, these mournful thoughts and feelings over Rhaenys that she shares with Baela at one point. But she's also having problems with her council as well. And basically she gets the feeling that they don't trust her. They don't see her fit to rule because she is a woman. She even makes the comment to Masari at one point, if I was born a man, I would have had a sword placed in my hands before I could walk. But yet here I am, a woman, and I was invited to the council, still named heir, but I held my father's cup during these meetings. That was it. So it's very interesting to see. Massaria, interestingly enough, who's really playing a kind of a bigger role in this season than what I thought she would. She says to Rhaenyra, you don't always have to fight a war on the battlefield and with swords. There are other ways to fight a war. And she knows that the small folk, the kind of lower classes of King's Landing, they're having problems. I mean, we see Aemond give the order that the gates will be closed. And we know that the Corliss has set up a blockade. So they're having trouble getting food. They're having trouble getting supplies in the castle or the capital. And the small folk are feeling this. So I kind of get the impression that they're going to kind of institute a riot. They even send in Rhaenyra's handmaid into King's Landing to kind of, I think, talk to some of this other folk around and maybe instigate this little riot. If they stick to the book, that's what's going to happen. But again, we'll see. They could stray from it. Who knows? But it was interesting to see. It was interesting to see how the Blacks dealt with the aftermath of Rook's Rest as well. Keeping with the Blacks, let's switch on over to Harrenhal. Poor Daemon. Daemon is just having a time of it, isn't he? At Harrenhal. The man is losing it, or has lost it, and is continuing to lose it. It's just some crazy, like off the wall scenes at Harrenhal. But we do see them trying to rebuild, and basically Daemon saying, we need to fix up the castle. I'll help pay for it, kind of thing. We do see some more interesting scenes and exchanges between him and Alice, which I'm just so happy about because I love Alice and I love the character. Some people have even saying online, I've heard some comments and seen some chatter that, is Alice even real? Or is Alice part of Daemon's kind of wild dreams and hallucinations? And I watched several of the scenes again between Daemon and Alice, and all through the series, it's like he is the only one she interacts with, and she's the only one that really talks to him. And even when other people are in the scene, they never really look at or address Alice. And maybe it's because of her low station, there in the castle. I mean, she's not a noble woman or of noble birth. Maybe she is a ghost. Maybe she's, we don't know. We don't know yet. Maybe she can make herself appear and disappear. I don't know. This is all part of her character that's very, very exciting to see kind of unfold, kind of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see. I keep wondering, how long is Daemon going to hang out in Harrenhal? Things are not going well for him either. He was trying to get some of the rivermen to come to his side, to come to Rhaenyra's side, to win them over to the Blacks, and that plan is not going well at all. There are people turning against him. He is threatening people. He is threatening people in the castle. He even tells them at one point to address him as king. So clearly he has elevated himself in his mind, at least, that he should be king. And it's interesting, he tells Alice at one point that he plans on taking King's Landing and he will sit in the Iron Throne. So it's going to be interesting to see if that comes to pass. So we'll see. I just want to take a really quick moment and say thank you for the piece of jewelry that I'm wearing. How I always like to wear something of my love, of all my fandoms. Today I'm wearing my Jessica DeLotte's Targaryen sigil necklace. Jessica DeLotte's is an English jeweler, and I believe she resides in London. And she has a whole beautiful line of House of the Dragon jewelry. She has necklaces, she has rings, she has different pieces, and they are all in this beautiful kind of like wax seal style with different sigils placed in the center. So of course I had to get the Targaryen one since that is the house I identify with. And I got this from her and I put it on the silver chain, and I just absolutely love wearing it. To me, it's just it's so Targaryen in its style, and I just love wearing it. I've gotten so many compliments about it, and just wanted to say thank you, Jessica DeLotz, for your beautiful jewelry. I'm going to link her website in the comments down below. So if you don't know about her and her wonderful jewelry line, she has other pieces as well that are just as beautiful. Definitely go and check out her webpage, and you will see she has a whole section called House of the Dragon jewelry. She has other sigils like for the sea snake, and she made the ring for Daemon with like the infinity knot on it, and just really, really beautiful pieces. So I just wanted to feature this and say thank you, Jessica DeLotz, for your lovely, lovely jewelry. I wanted to mention, and I think I said at the beginning, Claire Kilner did direct this episode, and I have to say she has a wonderful eye for cinematography. This episode I thought was shot just absolutely beautifully. So many details that she included with like lighting effects and different things. One of the scenes that I thought just was so outstanding in the cinematic nature of it was the scene of Aemond in the throne room where he's standing in front of the Iron Throne. And you see him standing there, and the camera kind of pans down a little bit, and you see the lightning flashing on his face. And it's interesting because the way it was lit, the side of his face where he wears the eye patch was in kind of the dark and in the shadow, and you only see kind of like half of his face. And at one point, he seems to notice someone, and he turns around and he sees Helena standing there. And Helena says to him, "Was it worth it?" So basically, she is telling him that since she's a dreamer, of course, she can see these things. She knows, did he do this on purpose? Was it worth the price that he is paying now to hurt Aegon and basically move him out of the way to kind of pave the way for him to sit on the Iron Throne? It just was a very interesting scene, and I'm so glad it was included, and just the way it was shot. I just wanted to call that out. I also love the scene between Corlys and Baela. Baela did come and on behalf of Rhaenyra to talk to Corlys and offer him her Hand of the King pin, which was in this beautiful box, which Baela gives to Corlys, and they just have this lovely conversation in between both of them, and you could tell, he really loves his granddaughter. And I love, at the end of the scene, he basically offers her Driftmark. And she turns, and just the most beautiful response, she says, "Grandfather, basically, I love you, but I am of fire and blood, and you need someone who is of the salt and of the sea to inherit Driftmark." And I thought that was such just a beautiful response, and just such a well-crafted scene between those two. I thought it was just a really cool nugget in the episode. Another very cool, interesting scene that was shot beautifully was when Jace went to visit the Freys at the river crossing, and they did some really cool drone work of like overhead shots where basically they're meeting at the middle of the bridge, and Jace is treating with them, and basically they're like, "What do you have to offer?" And they want Harrenhal, which again makes me question, yes, I know it's a large castle, but it's in a lot of disrepair, and the Freys want it, apparently, and also a dragon to protect them. So Jace is, carrying out this kind of this treaty with them, and I thought showed a lot of maturity on his character. And it seems when he gets back to Dragonstone and meets back with Rhaenyra, his mom, she, did tell him, "You went without my permission, but I am very proud of how you handled yourself." And I just thought it was a very well shot, well done, very well crafted scene. So this episode does end with an interesting scene between Jace and Rhaenyra. Again, after Jace gets back from treating with the Freys, you see him meeting with his mom, and they are talking about, what they have to do next. Rhaenyra basically tells him, you didn't go with my permission, but I'm proud of what you've done. And she realizes, she's going to have to fight this war. And she's kind of bemoaning the fact to Jace that, yes, they do have more dragons, but they lack for dragon riders. So Jace asks her, well, what about the others? Others with Valyrian blood that may not bear the last name of Targaryen or an old Valyrian name, but he's like, certainly there has to be others. And Rhaenyra has like this revelation light bulb moment where she's like, wait a minute, you're right. There's probably other people. And look, we have a whole library here that perhaps could tell us who these people are. The so-called dragon seeds that we have seen kind of introduced through these first episodes of the second season. We've seen Hugh the Hammer, we've seen Alan of Hall, and we've seen Ulf the White. And we know from their own conversations that they do have Valyrian blood, so that makes them perfect candidates for being dragon riders and coming to Rhaenyra's cause and the side with the blacks and help her fight the war. So I thought this was a very interesting way to set up future episodes by including this conversation and kind of this aha moment right at the end of this episode. I thought it was a great way to set up the rest of the season. So that brings me to the conclusion of our wrap-up and recap of episode 5, The Regent of season 2, House of the Dragon. It's so hard to believe to me, and I'm like, I want to cry when I think about it, that we only have 3 more new episodes to go. It's so hard to believe that, we're this far into the season. I thought that this episode was a good episode and a solid episode. I have to be honest. Now I'm gonna be honest with you all. I've just just sung praise and loved everything. And I gotta be honest, it's kind of hard to top that dragon battle we saw last episode. And I realize and know and understand their reason they make choices to include certain things or leave out certain things, and to the effort to move the storyline along. But the pacing of this episode seemed a little slow to me. I did watch the episode multiple times in prepping for this video, and I gotta be honest, it was kind of hard to keep my attention after a while. I mean, up until now, all 4 episodes have been so compelling and just in your face and nonstop action. This one just seemed to kind of slow it down a little bit. Now, I know they can't always have a dragon battle in every single episode, although that would be very cool. But I know that they can't do that. I understand that. But I thought it was a little on the slow side. Yeah. So am I anything if I'm honest, and I have to say that. However, cinematically, I thought it was shot absolutely beautifully. I think Claire Kilner is probably one of the best directors that they have working on this series. And I do know that, I realize these storylines, they are dropping seeds along the way to set up certain things in the future. It's going to be interesting to see, if we see, that riot that perhaps Mysaria is helping to instigate in future episodes. Again, I would love to see a crowning of Aemond. I mean, I'm not going to be happy until that crown is on his head, people. It's going to be interesting to see, is Daemon going to continue to go crazy and while his days away at Harrenhal? How long is he going to stay there? Is he going to make a move? It's going to be interesting to see. And y'all, I have to say, and I would be remiss if I did not mention, we got to see the dog again. I said when Aemond gave the order to cut down the rat catchers, that rat catcher's dog, he was so loyal, and he was still standing there by the guy, Cheese's rotting body. The loyal little dog was still standing there, and I just have to give props to the little dog. I thought that was so sweet that they included him again. So that is my wrap up of episode 5 of season 2 of House of the Dragon. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all are being well and being creative and trying to stay cool. It's very hot and humid here right now in Kentucky. We're in the middle of summer, of course, so I hope everybody is well. And until next time, peace, love, and dragons.